Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and I'm joined by David Fields. Hello, David.
How are you, Maria Isabel?
Doing great. Happy Monday. All right,
you.
Thank you. Welcome to this space where we answer your questions about how to grow, how to build your consulting firm. It is important that you participate in the discussion as well, and you bring your insights to the comments and the questions of others. And it takes us a minute to see your comments and your questions. There's a slight delay for us. So don't be shy. If you're here, jump in, say hi, and share your questions as quickly as you can so that we can get to them today. And having said that, we had one question that was left over from last week and some questions that came in. So Jaren, if you can get it started, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Hello, John. Happy Monday to you too. This question is from Jaren, and he asked how to develop first impression to corporate clients. David, what's your take on the question and on the answer, on the possible answer?
Okay. So I'm going to make an assumption here that the question is about how to, that we're talking with prospects.
Right.
Not, is that where you would go also? Okay.
Yeah, that's my feeling too, that it's people who are looking to be or become clients, and you want to make a good impression in the pursuit phase, if you will.
And hi, Preston. Okay, so overall, two principles can guide you in making your first impression with prospects. One is right side up thinking, and the other would be the 6 pillars of consulting success. So let's make those more practical. You develop a great first impression by being focused on them, because they are more important to themselves than you are. So you also want to focus on them. And also by being able to concisely, compellingly communicate who you are and what you do in a way that positions you as a reliable, credible source of value. So you can, because we know trust is the pillar that's most important of the 6 pillars in order to be chosen. So, and the 30-second firm overview will get you there. So your fishing line, a core model, if it's appropriate, a core offering. So taking it down one step even further, you make a good impression by starting with a right side up inquiry. It's good to meet you. Tell me about you. What would make this conversation really super helpful for you? Right side up inquiry. And then when it turns to you, having a very crisp fishing line, and if appropriate, the rest of a 30-second firm overview. There you go. That's what I would say. Maria Isabel, do you come out in the same place or someplace different?
Wholeheartedly agree. And actually, I was thinking as you were sharing that this is also very applicable if you have a client and you're meeting somebody new in your client, whether it's an extended team member or somebody that's new to your work or somebody that you want to cause a good impression in that context. Also, right side up inquiry and also 30-second firm overview, because they want to know about you, and you don't want to merge into giving a long talk just because they're already a client or they're part of a client team member. Then perhaps what you do is you talk a little bit about the work you're doing in its biggest sense. But the first 2 things you said, perfectly applicable also when you're meeting somebody new at a client.
Yeah, so I like that.
Let us know, Jan, if that helped.
Yeah, Jan, let us know if we answered what you were asking, or if you had a different question, tell us that. Yeah. Hi, Brian. And if you're listening live, post a question. So we have your question. Play Stump Maria Isabel.
Exactly.
Jaren, what else came in during the week? Okay, Susan said, can you describe the best practices or alternative scenarios after you've gotten responses to your 111 outreach? My response ratio is 80%. Wow. Should I suggest we catch up or something else? All right, Maria Isabel, you're on. What do you think?
Well, thank you, Susan, and congrats for being in motion. 111 outreaches, we're not going to go into what they are and how you build them right now. We'll post a link to an article that talks a little bit about that, and you can watch previous LinkedIn Lives where we talked about the techniques in and on itself. But Susan, congrats, right? You are in motion. That's what matters. Before I dive into my thoughts, there's a little kind of light that went out when you said that you're getting 80% responses to your 111. which is a lot higher than we would expect. And that could mean a couple of things, right? One is you have extremely strong relationships and you're reactivating them. More likely than not, it means that you're not reaching out broad enough in your network, meaning that you're only doing outreach with people who know you really well, that are really, really close to you, and not perhaps touching every decision maker that you have a semi-warm relationship with. So first thing for you to think about, food for thought, is a relook at who you're sending. You may be leaving people out judging by the amount of responses you're getting, right? Okay, so actual paths. What happens when somebody responds and engages with you with a 111? It depends, right? If the answer is a simple yes or no, which it can and could be very well because you're asking a yes or no question in your 111, then can you pull from that and have a little bit of a richer exchange, right? Via email or via LinkedIn or via text message, whichever medium you use to send your 111 in. In all cases, if there's an actual conversation to be had, we want you to get off written media, off email, off LinkedIn messaging, off text messages, and into an actual conversation with a person as quickly as it's reasonably possible. So don't be shy and say, want to learn more about that, or want to hear about it, or it sounds like there's a story there. Do you have 15, 20 minutes? And prompt for conversation. That's where I would go to. David, what do you think?
I have nothing to add. That's exactly right.
All right.
What you said. Do what Maria Isabel said. Unless someone has a question about that, in which case, post your question about that. But otherwise, let's see what else came in the magic bag of questions. Jaren, do we have another one? We do.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this question.
You read, I'll answer.
Cool. This question from Jonah. Jonah says, I have a client that has said they want to move forward with a new project, and they have sent me material to start working. However, they haven't signed anything yet, and I'm not sure my contact actually has the budget to do this project now. What do I do? I don't want to appear like I'm breaking up with them. Okay, so Jonah is in a little bit of a bind, David. What do you think?
So this one will be really quick. And hi, Gerardo or Gerardo, you can tell us. Because I constantly pronounce things wrong.
Hello, Gerardo.
All right. So they said they want to go ahead, but they don't have you don't have a contract. This is actually really easy. You call your client or prospect and say, how do we get a signature on this? I mean, that's it. It's a really simple question. Excited to move forward. How do we get this signed? And you can do that via email. You can, voice to voice is a little nicer if you can get them onto a phone or in the Zoom. This is not. Don't overcomplicate it.
Right.
It's a really fair request to ask for a signature.
It is super fair. Absolutely.
Maria Isabel, would you add anything else?
Yeah, I think sometimes people get too embedded in the work and too much thinking about the work. Also, don't assume the person does not want to sign or does not want to pay. Just assume they skipped a step, right, in the process, and go back and do it. If you have a team that supports you, you can say, look, my team is on my case. Need to get this stuff signed. And that's also very legitimate, because as you have a team, they will be on your case.
Exactly right. That is exactly right.
We're doing that.
All right, cool. And no questions coming in. Wow, it's quiet today. So you don't have any questions. Better to know there are no clothes early on. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly
right. Exactly right, Suzanne. All right. We agree with you completely. Jaren, what else do we have in the bag? Do we have another one? Ooh, wow. All right. I'll read this. Because you read the last one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We typically follow your approach of having a context discussion, then preparing a proposal. Okay, good. It works well. Yes, it does. It takes time. Sometimes we get to the end of quite a few hours of conversation and find out that the appetite to invest is small. Okay. Or the prospect is small. It'll still be nice to work with them, but we have more standard offerings that don't require so much discovery. Yes, gotcha. How can we determine when we need to go through standard projects versus a more customized approach? and do so earlier in the process. So it's a question from Jessica. What do you think, Maria Isabel? I mean, this is pretty fair, right?
Right.
Discovery can take a couple hours. You can get to the very end, and turns out they're only up for a soup and a sandwich
Right.
instead of a 3-star meal. So
Or
what
like
do
a
you think?
client of ours calls it a snack versus a meal, right?
Exactly.
To
Exactly.
borrow their terminology. So, so thank you, Jessica, for sending the question. And this is a question we actually face quite often, right? And to what point do you go with a standardized offering versus a bespoke offering, or do you really explore around corners in discovery? So I would encourage you to think of this well ahead of any additional discovery call, right? What are 3 to 5 questions maximum that you can ask your prospect at the very beginning of the conversation, that, or even before you start a conversation, which sometimes is very doable, that will allow you to determine the size and maybe the company stage of the process of your prospect, and then you can make a decision. You decide to either go into full discovery or an abridged version of your content discussion of your discovery process that then leads to a standardized offering. In all cases, we want you to do some level of discovery, because you cannot assume things like appetite to invest.
Right.
That is something that has to come from your prospect. You can make a very rough assumption, say, depending on their revenue and depending on where they're at or the stage, whether they would have more funding or less funding. But you're not the decision maker in that process, and you don't know priorities, right? So you will still want to be in a discovery conversation, even if it's an abridged one, and really understand the situation and make sure that when you present your standardized offerings, those are the right offerings to present versus not something more bespoke. That's where my head is at, right? And most of us, it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice and a little bit of knowing your prospects, and also knowing what you offer and who does it fit really well with and who's more likely to be able to go ahead and not. But you can all come up with 3 to 5 questions that will allow you to kind of go through an issue tree or something similar, where you can say, okay, my hypothesis or my reasonable hypothesis is this person falls within this category. What do you think, David?
Yeah, so I agree. I think you could almost break this into stages. I mean, certainly we do, and I'm happy to share what we do.
That's right.
And also, I was reacting to the discovery taking hours. Most of the time, you can get a context discussion done faster. But here's stages. Someone does an inquiry. A lot of inquiries come in via email, at least they do for us, or a contact form.
Right.
Your initial response can, as you said, Maria Isabel, can ask 2-3 questions that will point you in a direction. For instance, we ask, when people inquire, if they haven't told us in advance, we do ask how old the firm is and the size of the firm in terms of FTEs and revenue, because that gives us a sense of what path to take. Then you do a short conversation, 20 minutes, just to, not full discovery, just a little bit of get to know you, what's on your mind. Yes, you send in an inquiry, but let's figure out whether it's worthy of doing a full context discussion, which might be 40 minutes, 45, maybe an hour. The whole process should be between 60 and 90 minutes. For most cases, that will take you through all of discovery. And that first 20-minute call is what, between that first email and that 20-minute call, I think is what you're saying, Maria Isabel.
Right.
Is where you find out whether you need to invest the extra 60.
Right. Or you have a reasonable answer to how you could work together, right? And thank you, John, for adding to your to the discussion with your comment.
Yeah. Excellent.
Hi, Sunit.
Excellent. And hi, Sunit. We're glad to have you here. But now that you're here, it's time for us to go because we've hit the bottom of the hour. So thank you for spending 15 minutes with us, which we really appreciate it. Before you go, a couple of quick notes. What do we have on notes today, Jaren? One is probably, put this in your calendar. If you don't have it, And we're going to create a download to make this easy. Every Monday, just put in davidafields.com/Monday Live, and that way you join us.
Right.
And if you do not receive the articles every week, subscribe. We mentioned fishing line. I'm going to talk a little bit more this week about fishing lines and some other ideas around that. So make sure you're subscribed and you get the weekly articles. Oh yeah, connect with us on LinkedIn. That's how to get a hold of me and Maria Isabel. So that's it. Thanks so much for being here. Have an amazing week. Do remember to be right side up. Consulting's about them. It's about your clients and prospects. So give them value and give them kindness. And we will see you next week. Take care.
We will. Bye. Thank you.